Hello, everybody. Welcome to Vamily Show, Season 2, Episode 11. With me today, I have my guest, Bracha Goetz. She is author of many children's books. I believe it's 38 children's books that you've written. And you've also written another book as well, not just for children. Um, but the one one of the ones that you wrote for children is "I Want to Be Famous," and I read through there with Simon, and there was kind of two things to that book that struck me. At first, it kind of struck me that it's be careful what you wish for, because he wished to be famous, but he wasn't famous kind of for what he probably wanted to be. And then at the end, that you really need to get your validation and stuff from the inside and love yourself.
Exactly.
So where did the idea for that book come about?
Oh my gosh, I think that's my story, you know? I mean, I think that so many children are like that too. You think it looks so great to be famous as a child. You think you want that. And it's something that doesn't last long usually. I mean, if a person, they say that you get, who is it, that says you get 15 minutes of fame in life, and it's like
Right,
most people,
right,
but like it doesn't give you what you're looking for. And if you can get that spotlight to shine from within, then you'll have the joy that you're looking for your whole life. That's really what it's about. And that's what Seymour learned. Right. Like, I give him the name Seymour because he got to see more in life. He grew to understand, because he was blessed to get famous overnight, through the YouTube video. He realized it's not all it's cracked up to be at all, and that it's so much better to get that spotlight shining within. Exactly.
right,
Yeah.
right. And how did how did you decide to start uh, writing child books? What was your inspiration
Right.
to do that?
That's a great question. I wasn't brought up like my parents. They were really wonderful people, but they weren't like spiritual kind of people. And I feel like I felt something was missing from life, and I didn't know what it was. I feel like, how, when you do a scientific experiment and you keep everything like a regular and then you change one aspect, it's called a control. I feel like I'm like a control in the sense that I really was blessed with a really good childhood. And why was I still feeling like I was missing something? You know, um, I understand when people go through abuse and neglect as in childhood, and I really didn't. And yet there was something still I felt that was missing. And what was missing was that I just didn't have the nourishment for my soul. So when I
Hmm.
finally found the nourishment that my soul was craving, I wanted to write books for children so that children could nourish their souls from early on in life. Because if children can nourish their souls early on, they'll have that nourishment for the rest of their lives. They'll have the tools to bring happiness to themselves. They'll have the keys for living. So that's really what I
Right.
want to do. I try to write books for children that helps their souls to shine early on in life so that it can keep going throughout life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really awesome thing to want to do to give them that that inner strength through life,
Yeah,
because I think that's a lot of things that children don't get normally.
exactly. I want to write the books that I wished I had as a child, and I love Dr. Seuss. I happen to love Dr. Seuss. So I think my books, they're kind of Dr. Seuss style, but and Dr. Seuss books sometimes do. They have really deep meanings sometimes, actually. But all my books have like kind of deep messages. They're on really deep topics, but everything is done in a very like joyful and simple way. I explain things, so that anybody can understand it, and the parents kind of gain from it too when they're reading the books to the children. It kind of can fill them spiritually as well, but my real purpose is reaching children. That's what I love to do. Yeah.
That's that's amazing. We have a few people joining us already. Bob the Raptor and Joe, Weibel Family Adventures, Linda R, Thrifty Angela, um, Sherry's Creations and Inspirations is here. Um, I'm kind of when I read the excerpt that you sent me of searching, when I was reading that, and why I say this is because I enjoy reading that kind of thing, but it reminds me of like a journal blog entry of somebody going through life, and
Yes.
I was able to really get into that, and it really came to life in my head. So, is that a personal story that you dealt with in your life then?
Yes, exactly. The book Searching for God in the Garbage is the only book I've written for adults. And I didn't exactly write it because I don't like to write long things. I like short books, for picture books for children. This book kind of wrote itself because, like you said, I combined my diaries, my journals, my letters. So I just combined them. Not everything, of course, the most important stuff, and then I added some things in that were left out. But it's based on the actual what I experienced for 20 years of my life, from age 12 to 32, and it goes through basically how I developed like food addictions and how I
Mm-hmm.
overcame them. And really, I didn't understand how I overcame the food addictions until I got to the end of the book. I had the epiphany while I was writing it, putting it together, because I finally understood when I put the whole book together. It was like I saw the thread that went through my childhood up until, I was able to see why, when I finally got the nourishment that my soul was craving, then there was no longer a need for the addictions any longer. And the truth is, I think it's easy to see with food addictions, but it's true with any addiction that it's a way to feed our hungry souls. When we don't have enough pleasure in our life, that's how the addictions develop. Addictions develop to fill the emptiness inside, and
Mm.
it'll never do it. It only gives a temporary pleasure. In order to have more lasting pleasure, then we have to nourish our souls. And that's why when I finally found the nourishment for my soul, there was no longer a need for the addiction. But the book actually
Right.
goes through the throes of the addiction. As you read, I sent you an excerpt where I'm right in the throes of it, and searching, and it was like it was fluctuating between extreme dieting, like anorexic kind of behavior, binge eating. It was fluctuating between the
Mm-hmm.
two because I say, like, I wanted my body to look like my soul, which was starving. It was like a message. And the second thing is that I was genuinely, desperately hungry for true nourishment. So and I think that's the case with people that have overeating problems in general. You're never satisfied by the food because there's something deeper, more lasting pleasure that a person is craving.
Right. Right. And when I was when I was reading Sad Tapir's in here and Thomas Jordan are in here now as well. Uh, when you go about writing your books and um, having the characters, are there's some characters that you created in your books that you become attached to yourself? Like you wrote like Seymour there. I think he's kind of a cool character. Is there some of them that you kind of become attached to as you written your books?
Well, it's you're right. I mean, I think I'm in all my books, you know. I think I'm the person that's learning the whatever lessons I'm trying to bring into the world. I'm the one that needs to hear them, and it's what I've learned in life, and that's what I'm sharing. So I think I'm in all these books, you know. And like
Right.
one thing I would love to share with you is about something that I learned really recently about how we nourish our souls. That there's I learned that there's 5 levels to the human soul. There's and I also learned, this is one of the things that helped me to nourish my soul. I learned that there are 5 levels of pleasure in life. And so I put it together. The 5 levels of the soul correspond to the 5 levels of pleasure. And if
Mhm.
it's okay with you, I'd love to explain what they are. So could
Go
I do
ahead.
that?
Yeah, go ahead. For sure.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
so, so the lowest level of pleasure is physical pleasure. And
Mhm.
that's why the most common addiction is overeating, food addictions, because people get immediate pleasure from eating food. Like, food could have been designed to be tasteless, and it could have had no aroma, and it could have been colorless, and we it could have been fuel for our body. Like, we could just pump up with the fuel that we need, and that could have been all we had. But it was designed to give us pleasure. And that's the amazing thing
Mhm.
that I learned, which I didn't understand, is that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. This is something I never learned, and this is what I really love sharing with the world, because we're just not told that enough, that life is really meant for pleasure. So the most basic level of pleasure are physical pleasures. And so let's say a person's overeating, they're in the middle of overeating, they could ask themselves, is it my body that's hungry or my soul? And the minute they ask that question, they kind of activate a different part of their brain. And then
Mhm.
they are able to move from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance, and to recognize that there are other pleasures in the world. So, for instance, if you ask, is it my body that's hungry or my soul? You could then, in that moment, just like flick on some music, start dancing or stretching, or you could go out into nature and feel the sunlight and feel a breeze, and suddenly you don't feel like eating anymore, because you don't feel like overeating, because you've had enough physically, and now you're filling your soul with what it really was craving. So that's on the physical level. You could do all other types of physical pleasures. Moving up the ladder, the second level is love. And a person never has to be waiting around for love. A person can bring love into their life at any moment. And how is that? By by appreciating another, by by recognizing the value of somebody else. That's how we bring love into our life. So that's always available at any moment. A person that's feeling lonely can appreciate someone else. They could, let's say they're overeating again, they can call or text somebody lonely, and suddenly they won't feel like overeating. They're reaching out. So each higher level of pleasure brings us more connection. So we don't feel like, the reason many people overeat and get stuck in an addiction is a feeling of isolation or an estrangement. The more we feel
Mhm.
connection with the world, then that increases our pleasure. So even on the lowest level, physical pleasure, we're connecting with other things in the world, and then on the next level is love. We're connecting to another, a human, an animal, a plant, whatever we're appreciating. The third level is meaning, bringing more meaning into our lives, like you're doing by doing these podcasts. It's like you bring more meaning. And and also what you're doing with the suicide prevention. I mean, this is all bringing more meaning, and life becomes more pleasurable when we do that. And then the fourth level up is creativity. Also, when you're being creative, you know, you lose all sense of time. You go into another zone where you're like just
Yep.
connecting and creating. So that's the fourth level. The highest level is transcendence. At that level, the connection, we feel the oneness between ourselves and everything in the universe. We connect. The veil of separation is lifted, and we see how everybody and everyone, everything is connected. So basically, we get glimpses of that highest level in this world. We're not in that world, all the highest level, but we get glimpses of it. Like even on a starry night, we get glimpses of the awesomeness that we're a part of, the universal oneness. So these are each one brings more lasting pleasure, and each one just fulfills us, and it brings us the fulfillment that every every human soul is craving in life. So that's what
Hmm.
I'm loving sharing this right now, and I feel that helps my soul to shine by helping other people's souls to shine like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's amazing. Five different levels that you kind of brought up there, um, of it. And when you when you go into detail on those levels, it kind of reminds me of when I've told people, until your mind, until you can start accepting positive messages, until you start being positive, the words that you hear from people don't come out the same. Like when you're talking about with connection and stuff like that, until you're positive within yourself, and you're fulfilled, like you're talking about, feeding your soul and not just your stomach. It's hard to take in anything else that anybody says.
And had it, I'm curious, if it's okay with you. I listened to another one of your podcasts, and I really wanted to ask you, what made that change happen in your life? If you don't mind sharing, I don't know, you probably shared it before, but what made that change happen, that life became worth living for you? I just really wanted to know, if you don't mind.
It it took me getting to the point where I tried to take my own life. Is what
Right.
made it worth living, because it it was almost at that point, um, like a rebirth. And then what really got it going was just sharing my experiences of everything that's happened in my life on here. And that has felt, because when you have stuff happen, like, I had sexual abuse happen to me when I was younger,
Yeah.
parents divorced, all this kind of stuff that just keeps adding up over years. But you also feel, and even though it's stuff that's happened to you that's not your fault, you still get that feeling of shame,
Yes.
and you feel ashamed that's all happened to you. So once I let that go, and once that's out there, and you're not worried about people finding it out, it almost kind of gets rid of all that and kind of sets you free to not worry about that, and then you can live in the moment. You can live for what's happening tomorrow and not get so stuck in the past.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if you saw, but I wrote two books about helping to prevent sexual abuse of children. Two of my books are about that, because exactly for what you said, I'm all about helping a child's soul to shine. And when sexual abuse and other types of abuse happen, it just pours the garbage on top of the soul. And the amazing thing is that there's a pure part of the soul that remains pure no matter what garbage gets piled on top. And so the work in life is to nourish the soul so that it's strong enough to shine out past the garbage, and that kind of melts away the garbage. That's
Hmm.
the way to get rid of it. And yet, the title of my book is Searching for God in the Garbage, because that's what I was
Right.
literally doing. I was searching for God in the garbage. I was literally going through garbage pails looking for food in the worst part of the book. I mean, you didn't get to see that excerpt, but and I also had given up on life. I did not want to live any longer because I didn't see the purpose. It just seemed like when you're stuck in an addiction or any kind of garbage, if your soul is not shining, then you don't want to live. That's the whole thing, to get nourishment for the soul, so that it can thrive again. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it's about. And
Yeah.
I what got through to your soul that it was able to shine again? It was through helping other people. I mean, what made
Yeah.
it happen?
It was through helping other people, but like I said, until I could start taking in any positivity, I couldn't take in any other messages. Once I could start taking in the positivity, once I started doing that work on myself, then I could even accept thinking about, and that's why I kind of want to ask you the children's book you wrote too, like, because I think it goes along with this too, since you said a lot of it is figuring stuff out for yourself. But though you wrote, I think that's one of your children's books, where is God, is one of them too. I
Right.
I I I I, I for a long time, because the abuse that happened to me was from um, uh, the leader of the church's family, is how that happened to me. So for a long
Yes,
time I was angry at God, and until I started
absolutely.
doing this and had all these experiences, I was angry, and now I've actually turned the corner to where I'm thankful because I'm able to use this to help other people that may be in that situation that might not be able to talk about.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh, I love hearing this. It's exactly true. So many people are angry at God, and it makes total sense, especially for those types of things that happen. People hiding behind religion and doing terrible things, especially hurting children. It's like the cruelest thing. Also with parents, a person cannot how can a person trust in God when they can't trust their parents? This is how these things develop, and to it's recognizing that there's a part of God in each of us. That's our souls. When we
Mm-hmm.
recognize our souls, that's what empowers us. It changes everything, because it's that feeling of being controlled. If we think of, an angry God and these types of things, turn a person off, we have to understand that the understanding of God is the limitless love within us, the part of us that's infinite, the part of us that when we are when we do die, when our bodies die, that's not all there is to us. Like, that's what's
Mm-hmm.
so hard for me to believe, that that's not all. There's a there's something about us. There's a spiritual part of us which can live on forever, and that's the part of us that we can relate to as spiritual beings, because that's the thing. We're
Mm-hmm.
really spiritual beings clothed in bodies. That's what they are. So the more we can empower that spiritual part of us, that's what brings us tremendous pleasure in life. Exactly. So I think all the pleasure
Yeah.
that you're experiencing, it's so awesome that you were able to, to turn it around, is tremendous. That just shows the miraculous soul that you have, because it doesn't make sense. A physical body would never be able to would never have the resilience to rise up above what was done to it. But it's your
Yeah.
soul that was able to have the resilience to be who you are today. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. The last key to get where I'm at now is you have to be able to give up control. You have to, because I think for me at least, I've come to realize that control is the opposite end of faith. If you have to have faith that there's some sort of plan for your life that you're not in control of, And if we haven't learned anything from all this stuff going on, is that your plans really don't mean anything to
Right.
what's going on. That God probably has a better plan for your life than you can come up with.
So, so true. And you know how with mindfulness, we can say, I just heard this recently. Here's my life. As we breathe in, here's my life. And as we breathe out, here's my life. We're giving our life to the world. And with every breath, we're taking in life. I mean, that is a way just to increase gratitude and to increase mindfulness and to increase appreciation of each moment here. Here's my
Mm-hmm.
life, and here's my life. You know, so we're grateful for every breath. We're not in control of each breath. It comes into us, and then we breathe it out. You know, and that's how we. And like you say, surrender. We are surrendering to the acceptance that this is really a good place. And that's so hard to do, especially when a child has had abuse or neglect in their childhood, to accept that this world was really designed for us to have the greatest pleasure possible here, lasting pleasure. Because actually
Mm-hmm.
there was no other purpose for us to be here. Like if God if God, I wasn't brought up to believe in God. You know, this was something that I came to later on. But God, if God is everything, then God can do everything. But what's the one thing that everything can't do? Everything can't give to another because everything is everything. So everything has to contract. Infinite everything has to contract a little bit to be able to give. And so that's all that was missing from God, to be able the ability to give to another, and that was
Mm-hmm.
us. So we were created so that God could fulfill the giving to another, because otherwise God was everything. So and what does God want to give? What does a parent want to give their child more than anything in life? Is the greatest pleasure possible. That's really what we're here for. And we make things more
Right.
difficult for ourselves, you know, or not, or other
Yeah.
people sometimes make life difficult for us too, even from childhood on. But we're here to, you know, to go through the crucible like you've been through. We've all go through crucibles in our lives, and to come out diamonds from whatever we're going through, to go through that and to be able to shine, you know, our souls.
Right. 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 And Miss Southern Belle has popped in here now as well. And when I was reading the book searching for God in the garbage can, the excerpt you sent me, I had flashbacks of my own life because I was going out and drinking and all that kind of stuff and trying to like you're saying, you're trying to fill that void in your soul by filling
Yes,
it, either with food or with drinking or with sex or with anything. You're trying to
exactly.
fill that hole that's there, and until you fill it, you're gonna go to whatever else. Maybe you get, okay, I'm not addicted to this anymore. Well, it'll probably switch to something else until you fix that hole that's there. And you probably had experience with that, jumping from one thing to another as well.
Yes and no. I mean, once I got the nourishment that my soul was craving, I didn't have a need for addictions anymore in my life, because I
Mm-hmm.
could see the abundance of pleasure. When you don't feel that scarcity, that takes care of the bottomless pit that I felt, that I'm expressing in the book. That was a bottomless pit. Nothing could fill it. And whatever fills it is so temporary. It fills it temporarily, and then you feel worse afterwards. That's an addiction. When
Mm-hmm.
my life became unmanageable. That's how I know I had an addiction, you know. So basically, once you really, your soul gets that nourishment that it was craving, then you don't have to keep substituting addictions any longer, because
Right.
you can recognize the abundance in life, and you can move up the ladder always getting more and more pleasure from life because you know it's available. You're no longer frightened. You don't live with a constant fear of the scarcity of pleasure in your life and lacking it. And especially love. You know, many people are so lonely, especially now, even more during the pandemic. And and I remember being extremely lonely during that time when I was had my addictions. And now it's like you don't ever have to be you don't ever have to feel that loneliness and estrangement because a person can always bring love into their lives. It's soul power. If you use your soul
Mhm.
to to appreciate other people, then a person will never be lonely or alone. I mean, you can always find someone lonelier. Like if you ever now we can't walk into a nursing home or an assisted living, but there's all these lonely people just sitting out there waiting, craving someone to visit them, you know. And you go into
Mhm.
shelters, you go into animal shelters. I was volunteering in an after school daycare for children in the inner city. It was unbelievable. When I'd walk in, I'd be surrounded by children running to hug me. They were so starving for love. It was kind of like unbelievable. They just wanted hugs and they wanted love and they wanted attention. We can always find lonely people that we could give love to. So a person never has to feel alone in this world if they don't want to. A person can always bring more love into
Right.
their life. Yeah. So and we could
Yeah,
always move
I
up the
understand
ladder.
that. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, you can, you can. And Evergreen Homestead popped in here as well. And Miss Southern Belle, you don't have to be lonely. You're here hanging out with us. You got a whole bunch of love from us. You don't have to be lonely here. So, um, I kind of wanted to know, like, if you had a chance to go back in time to that girl that was living there, that was living that journal at the time, would you believe yourself that you were going to be a writer one day and have all these books?
I really didn't want to live any longer. I relate to that part of you because the whole world seemed gray to me at that time. There was no right or wrong. I had no morals left whatsoever. Nothing mattered, you know. I mean, I could go home with this guy who was drunk could drive me home. Nothing mattered anymore. My life didn't matter to me because I didn't understand the purpose to living. I was
Right.
searching for it so much. And finally, I was able to find it. And I'm so grateful every day. And that's why I'm really devoted my life now, this part of my life, to sharing this because that's all I want to do. I just want to share the keys to having pleasure in life with everybody because these five levels of pleasure are not arbitrary. They're actually based on ancient mystical wisdom, based on the five levels of our human soul. So we all are able to have this pleasure. It's within our grasp, and nobody can take it away
Mm-hmm.
from you. Your soul is still pure no matter what garbage got piled on top of it, no matter what garbage I was
Yep.
going through back then. I couldn't picture how wonderful my life would be today. There's no way I could imagine this. It's like beyond
Yep.
what I could have imagined, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I look at it. Had you ended or I ended it, it's like somebody writes a book, and then you're reading it, and somebody else comes up and they rip the end of the book off, and that's where that story ends. So it's kind of like, maybe for you, I feel my life the way it's gone so far that I'm in my third act now where you make that comeback, and maybe you kind of feel that way about your life.
Exactly. It's really a joy to be alive. How does it go again? Here's my life. Here's my life. It's I wish that for everybody listening to discover that soul underneath all the garbage. And it's
Mm-hmm.
still there. It's still pure and it's shining. Each soul is shining uniquely, beautifully in a whole different way than every other soul. Otherwise, that you wouldn't be here. You're
Hmm.
here because you have a specific purpose in the world, not just one purpose, many purposes. But you're here for a reason. Everybody that's alive right now. Otherwise, you wouldn't be.
Yeah.
What I have a magnet on my fridge. If I forgot what it says now. but like your mission in life is not complete. How do you know? Here's a test to find out if your mission in life is complete. If you're alive, it isn't. It's not complete. If
Hmm.
you're alive, you still have a mission here. Probably many missions, but
Yeah.
there's all kinds of reasons that you're here. So try to shine. Try to enjoy the physical pleasures in this world. Bring more love into your life by appreciating other people, reaching out. You can always find someone lonelier. Bring more meaning, creativity, and then recognize the oneness, how we all connect with each other. We're all connected, everybody. Sometimes we feel
Yeah.
very separate and estranged, but we're really all connected. Why? Because we're all spiritual beings. These bodies just make us look different, but we're all
Hmm.
one spiritual entity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say along with that, um, uh, Gary Vee always talks about the stat the, of you existing. The odds of you existing is 400 trillion with a T to one. So just the
Wow.
fact that you should exist should make you feel so grateful. And because think of the luck to hit the odds of 400 trillion to one of you existing is really amazing. Because had your mom decided I'm tired that night, or she never ran into your dad, you wouldn't exist. And then that's goes back that far. So that's how you get those kind of odds.
Wonderful. So great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say, when you're talking about mindfulness, I talked to somebody else, Renee King, and she said this, and I thought it was so profound, and how simple it was. It's called the present for a reason, because it's a present that you have it.
Yes, it truly is a gift. I got this other quote. I think you're going to love this. Who said this? I don't know. Wait a minute. Maybe maybe I heard it on your show. I wrote it down when I was
You might
listening.
have.
I think I did. Sometimes you think that you want to disappear, but really all you want is to be found. I think I heard
Yeah.
that on one of your shows. Sometimes you think that you want to disappear, but really all you want is to be found. That's it.
Hmm.
You want to find that soul that's still in there and it's
Yep.
ready to shine. Give
Yep.
it a little
And
nourishment so it could shine. Yeah.
and you might you can probably um, attest to this when I tell people a lot of the a lot of suicide and stuff happens because people feel so alone in their pain, like nobody else can understand that pain,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they feel like the world would be better off because nobody can understand what I'm going through, and
Right.
so it like you're saying, you want to be found, and and sharing it out there. And I'll tell anybody out there that is listening, if you're feeling that, talk to somebody, and realize that you're not alone in what you're going through. There's somebody else that's went through what you're going through. Maybe not everything, but there might be a few different people, and the combination of those people, you can realize they've been through that stuff as well.
Exactly. Exactly. So true. Everybody, it's that feeling of estrangement that causes all this. So we have to recognize that we all have things in common, and like you said, we're all unique, and yet we all have things in common with each other. So the more
Mm-hmm.
in fact, writing my book also helped me. That was part of sharing. And by many people said to me, how could you write these embarrassing and degrading things in your book? But it was very freeing. It's freeing to do that, to share the worst moments in your life, to share your rock bottom. there's nothing left in there then. You're not hiding anything
Mhm.
anymore. You feel it's a
Yeah.
very freeing experience because you could help other
Yeah.
people. Everybody's got these things. Everybody got has things that they're really embarrassed and ashamed of. Then you're just not. It takes away the shame because inside the deepest core of you, your root source is something pure, beautiful, wonderful, infinitely wonderful. That's the real you. So if you could bring
Yeah.
that part out, there's nothing to be ashamed of. All that garbage stuck on top, that was put there by other people. You know what I mean? It just got stuck on there, but you can get through it and shine out. That's really
What was
what we're here for.
that breaking the dam moment? Um, because that's what I kind of refer to it as myself, where you realize by sharing something of your life that you could help somebody else. Because once you realize that, you're like, well, I'll share everything then, because who knows what could help who.
I don't remember the first share, but definitely writing this book was when the first people started reading it. It was like people that first, before it goes out into the world, people that read it. That's actually the most embarrassing time, because all these people that know
Mm-hmm.
you're reading it, when people you don't know read it, it's much less embarrassing. So initially, when people just that I knew were reading it, it was like really hard. But after I got through the first few people, okay, I'm still here. I'm still
Right.
alive. I made it through. And it's such a
Right.
joy to be able to help other people. There's nothing like that. Yeah.
Right. And we kind of touched on it. It was better therapy than any other therapy that I ever had in my life.
Wow.
Just
Wow.
putting it out there. It was very
Wow.
therapeutic to do that.
Wow. And can I ask you, how did the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, how did they help you? Did they actually?
They didn't help me, but
uh,
I wanted to find a charity that dealt with that because I had
right.
a personal experience with it, and I
Right.
figure if the line's down here, if I have that on my screen, and somebody sees it, or
Yes.
if by helping to donate to them, somebody else can have that phone call and they get a second chance, and maybe they can go follow their dreams. Maybe everything hasn't worked in their life, but now because I almost gave up my life, so why not go try to start the business I wanted to, or go like you write a book, or whatever I've always wanted to do. What do I have to lose? I almost gave it all up anyway, so why not go for it?
Yes. Beautiful. So great.
Yeah, yeah. And your books are all available on Amazon.
Y-
I have it in the description, and I've been putting it in the chat below. She has children's books as well that will help your children be a little bit more resilient. Is probably a good way to put it in life, and not fall into those traps of trying to feed your soul negatively.
Beautiful. Yes, you put it great. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Nope.
for everything that you're doing. It's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate having you on. And the next time you have a book come out, or something like that, I'd love to have you back on. Just send me an
Yay.
email. We'll get you back on. But stay with me for a second. I'll say goodbye to everybody else here. Stop waiting for life to happen and make life happen. Later, guys.
Wonderful.